Look, my top rated book on confidence is called The Super You. I'm sending it to you, physical book, free. Go to the link down there. You got it.
DreAllDay.com.
Congratulations on tuning in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you've expected to achieve is yet to be achieved. And on top of that, you're going to become a go-getter, the person who goes and makes things happen instead of waiting for things to happen through your personal initiative. On top of all that, you're going to put all this together. And you get the mindset, the method, the podcast known as Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. And today's topic is you got to stop lying to yourself when you know you have no talent. When you know you're in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing, trying to fit the square peg into the round hole, proverbially, as they say. You got to stop telling yourself a lie. It's not about what anybody else says. Not about what I say to you. It's about what you say to you. It's about you having a real conversation with yourself, knowing, listen, I'm trying to force myself into something that obviously is not working, that I don't have the right raw materials for. There is something that you do have the right materials for, but you'll never find it if you're still stuck trying to do the thing that you know is not for you. And today's topic, the reason that I'm talking about this topic, I want to make sure I'm being clear why I'm talking about this, because you heard me talk just a few episodes ago, just a week ago, talking about how much talent played a role in my success. You know, despite in addition to the underdog story, like, oh man, it was amazing that you came from this and then you made it to that. And a lot of people have those underdog stories, right? And oftentimes myself, just like those people, we kind of discount, or we conveniently leave out the parts that made it a little bit easier for us, that made it possibly work for us, because it doesn't sound so sexy when we add in, well, yeah, I had a whole lot of talent, or yeah, I knew this person, or yeah, this thing happened right here, or yeah, this stroke of luck happened right there, because then it wouldn't be as motivating for somebody else who may be in the same spot saying, well, maybe I can do the exact same thing. And the reason I'm talking about this specifically is, of course, most of you probably know, if you listen to this show often enough, you know that I come from an athletic background. I hear from a lot of athletes who want to, quote unquote, make it in basketball, whether that's playing professionally, playing in college. And the thing is, a lot of these athletes just don't have the talent to do it. Now, I'm not saying that because I'm out evaluating athletes or I'm watching people's game videos, so don't send me any if you happen to have one. It's because I can just look at the raw materials that, from what people are telling me, from what a lot of athletes are telling me, they just don't have it, but they think they do, or they think they can make it, or they talk to someone like myself and they're like, well, look, your situation is very similar to mine. Or they say, well, I heard your story, and you know what? We got very similar stories. You know, I hear that like every single day somebody reaches out to me and says, well, Dre, we got the exact same story, at least as far as their background goes. And I don't think they're lying. All right, I believe them. All right. I believe athletes who tell me, listen, I barely played in high school, or I didn't get recruited to college, or I'm not playing on a college team right now, because all of those things at one point or another were true about me. So they're absolutely right that we do have the same story in some way, shape, or form. But our stories are probably not always going to end the same way, because, listen, you got to have certain raw materials if you're going to be successful in anything that you're doing. All right. Nobody's going to come from absolute zero and, quote unquote, make it in anything in life. I don't believe that you will. I believe that there needs to be some type of raw abilities that are already present there for you. Something has to already be there for you in order for you to really get to where you want to go. And if you're lying to yourself, telling yourself that you can make it happen just coming from nothing, just because somebody else did it, or at least it appears that somebody else did it, or because of the place you want to go is just such a sexy destination that you're going to just delude yourself into believing that you can do it. And listen, there are times when it makes sense to delude yourself into believing you can do something. But there are times when it also does not make sense. But the thing is, people, that by the time you figure out that deluding yourself into believing you could do something was the wrong idea, when you figure out that was the wrong strategy, it'll probably be too late for you to really put the time you could have put in to whatever would have been the right strategy. See, I discussed this a few episodes ago, also episode number 728, where I talked about hard work does not beat talent. I know people tell you hard work beats talent. The hard work does not beat talent. Go back to episode 728 so you can hear me explain that in full. Don't take that statement out of context. In episode number 722, how to exploit your talent when you do have talent, because all of you, everyone listening to this, you have at least one talent. I think everybody has multiple talents, but you have at least one talent. How much of that talent are you using on a day-to-day basis in whatever it is you do? Whether that's your full-time work, whether it's a hobby, whether it's something you're working on the side, whether it's the school that you're in, the major that you're studying, the trade that you're taking up. How much are you using your actual talent? Go back and listen to those episodes to make sure you get everything that you need to get from me. But let's get right into today's topic, which is stop lying to yourself when you have no talent. Now, when I say no talent, I'm referring to in the specific area that you are trying to force yourself into. All right, everyone has talent in something, but we're often not using that talent in the right thing. So let's get right into it. Number one, here's the question you got to ask yourself. Are you struggling to be mediocre? Are you struggling to be mediocre? Now, if you have heard my background story, you heard me talk how I used to play baseball before I actually started playing basketball. I played baseball until I was about 14 years old. Then I switched over to basketball because obviously baseball wasn't working. I realized at one point I couldn't have articulated it in this way at age 14. I can now, but I realized at one point, okay, I just don't have talent for baseball. I mean, I could become an adequate baseball player if I worked really hard on catching ground balls and catching the fly balls and work on my arm and throwing, because I played in the outfield and worked on hitting the ball when a pitcher was pitching the ball to me and running the bases. And if I ever learned how to slide, I played baseball all those years, never learned how to slide. If I had picked up on those things, I could have learned some of those things. I could have become okay, right? I could have become adequate, but I didn't have talent for it. I would look at some of my teammates. I had some teammates when I was playing baseball who actually had talent, or players I would play against. These guys had talent. They were hitting the ball all over the park. They had great arms. They could slide. They were great at catching the ball. They had just certain skills that I know they didn't go to the field by themselves ever and just practice on their own, right? These just innate abilities that they had. I was looking at them and I looked at myself. I said, you know what? I just don't have any of those for this sport. How about I try this other sport over here, basketball? Now, I didn't know if I had any innate skills for basketball either. I had to play for a little bit to see if it would have worked out. That didn't work out. Who knows? Maybe I would not have become an athlete. Maybe I would have just went straight into the Work on Your Game podcast. You never know. But if you are struggling to be mediocre, you're in the wrong place. I did this, as I said, with baseball before I walked away to basketball. And the problem that many people have with this one right here, I'm going to tell you what the challenge is for many people, is that they're setting goals based on external factors. External factors such as they see someone else who's done something and they want to do what that person did just because they admire that person, or they like the way that person talks, or they look up to that person for whatever reason, so they want to do the same thing that person did. Maybe you're measuring up to somebody else's standards, a parent, a friend, the people in your neighborhood, etc. Something that somebody else thinks you should be doing based on what they think you can do, or based on what they think would be good and good outcome for you, or maybe based on you doing the same thing that they're doing. A lot of people spend their lives trying to measure up to other people's standards, not even consciously knowing that that's what they're doing. Maybe you want to replicate somebody else's life, even though it's not a fit for you. It doesn't really fit where you're at and who you are. In the 50th Law, the book written by Robert Greene and 50 Cent, 50 says this in the book. He says a lot of people want to be 50 Cent, or they want to be some celebrity, or they want to be some famous athlete, even though being that person does not fit who they are or where they are in life. But they want to do it because of the attention, because maybe they'll feel included, maybe it'll make them feel validated, they'll feel accepted. You don't want to find yourself spending too much of your life doing things to appease another person, or to fit in with other people, or to complete the circle of you being like somebody who you happen to admire, because by the time you figure it out, again, you wasted a whole lot of time you could have used doing what you really could have been doing in your life. And everyone has something that you really, really could be doing with your life that you may not ever notice until you wasted a whole lot of your vigor, a whole lot of your energy. I've told the anecdote before of how when you're a young child, especially when you're African American and male, and you're tall, let's say 6 feet and up, and you're coming up in your teen years, older people and people your age and people beneath your age, lower than you, will look at you and say, damn, do you play basketball? When I was young, I'm only 6'4", I'm not that tall. Like, I could walk around the street and you could say, all right, if you said he's a basketball player, people would accept it. If you said he was a lawyer or a doctor or an author or a podcaster, people are like, oh, okay. It's not a big deal. I'm not so tall that people are like, man, he has to be a basketball player. You understand? But even at my size, I would have family members, peers, kids who are my age, younger kids, random strangers who I would see in the streets. They would see me as a 15-year-old when I was, let's say, maybe 6 feet or something like that. They'd be like, man, do you play basketball? You play basketball? Or you that kids, when we play ball, kids be like, well, you that tall and you can't dunk. It was like they expected you to be a basketball player just because of your height. So someone who's taller than me, and I've met many of them, I play ball with many of them, I watch many of them, and is really, it's disappointing to me, disheartening to me to watch some of them, because I could tell they don't really like basketball. I see a lot of kids who are tall, let's say 6'3" maybe and up. That's about the height where people start putting the basketball expectations on you when you're a young black man. And I could tell they don't like basketball. They don't really enjoy it. Their heart's not really in it. I mean, they can have a little bit of fun. And of course, you get the validation of people cheering for you when you get a dunk or you have a good game, and you got everybody hoping that you, quote unquote, make it for whatever reason, whatever it's going to do for them. But you could tell they don't like it. You could tell that they don't really want to be doing it. And I've seen it. I've seen players get to high school and give up basketball. I've seen players get to college and stop playing. Players get out of college and they don't want to play anymore because they never really loved the game in the first place. They got into it because they were conditioned to believe that's what they were supposed to do. And a lot of people do this to themselves, even when you're not young, black, and tall. But a lot of people do it to themselves in other areas of life. But sports seems to be, maybe I'm just biased because I'm an athlete and I hear from a lot of athletes, and I just notice a lot of stuff regarding sports. A lot of people do it when it comes to sports. And I've said this in so many different episodes of this show. There are too many people who believe, quote unquote, believe that sports is the thing that they're supposed to do in life when they don't have any talent for it. When they're only doing that because they see it on the internet or they see it on TV, or because they're hearing it from their family members, they're hearing it from their friends, they're hearing it from their peers, they're hearing it from adults in authority who are not doing it. They're not trying to be malicious, but it's the first thing they think. Man, you're tall, you're young, you're going to be a basketball player. It's just the thing that people go to, and because it's so sexy to become one, right? It's like a sexy thing to get that job and go to the NBA and get drafted or play overseas and be able to play a game for a living. Listen, it is beautiful, it's luxurious, it's sexy, but it ain't for everybody. And everybody ain't for it. That's another thing. That's another thing that I should actually be saying. It ain't for everybody, and everybody ain't for it. A lot of people think it's for them, but they don't have the tools to actually be for it. So make sure, this first point, we're still on point number 1, and today's topic is stop lying to yourself when you have no talent. Are you struggling to be mediocre? All right, even if you love it, even if everybody's been telling you that you should be doing that thing, even if you think you have all the talent and you think it's your destiny and you think, oh, well, I got to make it because it's going to help my family. I get athletes who reach out to me and say that, well, I got to make it as a basketball player, not for the fame, not for the attention. I got to do it to help my family because we don't have a lot of money and we're struggling. Listen, I believe you. I'm not telling you that I don't believe you, but just because that's the reason why you want to do it does not mean that you're going to make it, because if you have no talent, someone with more talent than you who doesn't even need the money is still going to beat you out for the spot simply because they got raw material that you don't have. That's just the reality of the situation. Now, you can accept that from me, you can throw it away, but don't say that you weren't told. Point number 2. Today's topic is stop lying to yourself when you have no talent. Understanding success, ladies and gentlemen, is much easier when you're working from a position of power. What is a position of power? When you're trying to be successful, is a position of having talent. Talent is power, ladies and gentlemen. When you're a commodity, meaning you don't really have much talent, there's nothing about you to separate you from the next person who says they're also a fill in the blank. When you're that, a commodity, you're easily replaced. Anybody can take your spot. Anybody can do what you're doing. But when you're a talent, when you have the name, people are coming for you. People want you. People want to sign you to a contract. People want to have you on their team. People want you to be in their movie. Whatever the situation is, that's when you have power. When you're working from a position of power, a position of talent, you know this because the activities will come so much easier to you. Doesn't mean you won't have to work hard. Does not mean you won't put in long hours. Doesn't mean that there won't be long days and tough situations, but things will come to you a whole lot easier when you're working from a position of talent. So what are your talents? Write them down. Do you know what your talents are? And I'm pausing there on purpose. I want you to really think about that. Do you know what your talents are? What are you talented at? What are the things that you do really well? Do you even know? Because if you don't know, you just might be trying to do something that you have no talent for right now, and you wouldn't even know it because you don't know what your talents are. How would you know? Somebody ask sometimes, well, Dre, how do I find my passion? How do I find what I really want to do in life? How do I find my talent in life? Well, you got to get active. I mean, this is not something that you can get out of reading a book or listening to a podcast or watching a YouTube video. You got to get out and get active and see. You got to try things, do different things. When I was a kid, my mother would try to get me to try different sports. That's how I ended up doing baseball, or I did a little bit of football, and then it was basketball. I think once she was thinking about trying to get me into karate. We never actually did it, but the purpose was, I know one of the purposes was just get this kid out of the house, let this boy use up all this energy, but also to let him explore and see what's possible for him. And I think in our culture being the African-American culture, when people come out of inner cities, especially when there may not be so many opportunities. It may not be a swimming pool where you come from. Maybe there isn't a soccer team or a place where you can practice karate. The only things you got, as Notorious B.I.G. said, you're slinging crack rock or you got a wicked jump shot. You're either standing outside on some street corner with people under maybe some negative influences, or you're trying to be a basketball player, or maybe you're trying to be a rapper, right? Those are like the three things that people think they can do. Jay-Z said, all us blacks got is sports and entertainment outside from the streets. So maybe you don't have so many different options, but the fact that you're listening to this podcast means you have access to a wide world of information, because somehow, some way you have access to the internet, right? Now on the internet, you can see a whole lot of things, maybe things you've never touched before, places that you've never been before, but now you at least have access. Your brain can at least go on that journey. If you can't physically go on the journey, you can mentally go on the journey and start to think about, look at, what other things could I possibly do? How else could I explore? What ways could I stretch myself? What things can I try that I've never tried before, that I may never try if I never leave the environment that I'm in right now? When I was going to college, one of the things that was important for me in college, it didn't happen, but one of the things that was important for me in college was I wanted to go away. I didn't want to stay in Philadelphia. I didn't even want to stay in the state of Pennsylvania for college, because I wanted to get out of that environment, not because there was anything wrong with it. I didn't hate the city or anything like that. It was, I wanted to go to where some other people were. I wanted to explore the world. I wanted to see other things. I wanted to experience new things. I didn't know what else was out there. I mean, the only thing I knew was what I could read in the magazine or what I could watch on TV, but I wanted to actually see it and feel it and experience it. I knew that there were a whole lot of people out there in the world that lived way differently than whatever I saw every single day. I knew it was out there. I could not explain it. I couldn't articulate it to anybody, but I knew I wanted to get away. So if you have an opportunity, it's something that I tell kids all the time, especially when they come from the kind of environment that I come from, go away to college. That's your chance to go away. It's your excuse to go away. You got somewhere to go. You got a reason to be there. Go away so you can see what's going on outside of the little radius of community that you've been in so far in your life. But that's another topic that we'll talk about at another time. So what are your talents was the question I was asking. Write those talents down. And what are you doing to currently explore and or make the most of those talents? Point number 3. Today's topic is stop lying to yourself when you have no talent. Number 3, when you're working on something from a position of no talent, you could do everything right and still fail. Any of you ever been in that situation? Often when people reach out to me, they tell me about all the things they're doing right? I'm training this much, I'm working out this much, I'm talking to these people, I reached out to this guy, emailed all these coaches, I tried to reach out to these agents, I tried to connect with this person right here, I explored all these exposure camps. These are athletes that I'm giving the examples of. They're telling me all these things that they're doing right, yet they're still not getting the result. Well, maybe you just don't have talent. Maybe you just don't have as much game as you think you do. Maybe you are one of the best players in your neighborhood, but your neighborhood's so small compared to the rest of the world. When you get outside of your neighborhood, you ain't that good anymore. Maybe that's the situation. Maybe not, but maybe it is. When you are working from a position of no talent, you can do everything that you are asked to do, everything you're told to do, everything that's prescribed to you in some blog post on how to make it, or everything you heard on some podcast from somebody telling you, hey, you could do the same thing that I did. If I can do it, you can do it. You ever hear somebody say that? And that's complete bullshit, because a lot of things that one person does, it does not mean that anybody else can do it, because again, they're conveniently leaving out the part about the talent that they have. And I'm trying to uncover that, expose that information for you. You can do everything right and still fail when you have no talent. I mean, and when I say fail, I mean not even close fail. When it came to baseball, I was doing everything I was supposed to do. I was coming to practice. I was doing the batting practice. I was taking extra ground balls and doing all that stuff. I was doing everything that I was supposed to do when it came to baseball, and I was still failing in the sport. Why was I failing? Because I had no talent. I was trying to do something that I didn't have talent at. When I was playing basketball, I was failing a lot too in the beginning of that, but I could see the progress. I could feel the progress. I was actually getting better. I could see myself getting better. I could see tangible results of me improving. I could feel myself getting better. And even when I was failing, I was excited to get back at it because I kind of innately knew, hey, this is what I can do to kind of fix that right here. Here's what I can do about that situation right here. I felt like I was getting closer even when I was failing, even when it seemed to the outside eye that I was far away. That's why I was excited for it. Only you can truly measure this though. See, this is why I'm telling you innately I could understand it. I couldn't have written it down. I could not have explained it. If someone was watching me, I couldn't have explained to you like, look, see how I got better from last Monday to this Monday? You wouldn't have been able to see it. I couldn't have pointed it out to you, but I could feel it. So only you can truly measure this one right here. So this is based on how honest you're willing to be with yourself. Now this is an important point. Now this is one that I can't, there's no hack for this. Okay, there's no online course for this part right here. You being honest with yourself, you keeping it real with yourself and saying, okay, do I have talent for this? Am I good at this? Am I getting improvement at this? Do I really have some natural abilities in this thing right here? Am I in the wrong place? Do I need to throw away the last 5 years of my life? Do I need to throw away all these hours I put in the gym, or all these hours I put into trying to write this book, or all these hours I put in trying to record these videos or make this podcast? Do I really need to throw this away? Do I need to throw away and shelf this business right here and go get myself a regular job? Do I really need to throw away the years I put into this industry and go start myself a business because I don't have talent for doing the thing that I'm doing right now? You got to be honest with yourself here. There's nothing that anybody else can tell you. Someone else can pose to you the questions, and I'm posing you a whole lot of questions here today. Hopefully some things that will provoke you to think, but I can't provide you the answers. That's going to be on you. Let's recap today's topic, which is stop lying to yourself when you have no talent. Number one, are you struggling to be mediocre? Just ask yourself the question. And what I'm doing right now, and have I been working really hard? If you've been working really hard and putting a whole lot of time and effort into it, are you still only getting to mediocre or just struggling to even get to mediocre despite all of your best efforts? If you're doing that, maybe you're in the wrong place and maybe you don't have as much talent as you think you do in that space. And maybe you don't have talent and you never thought you did. Maybe you just need to think of, hey, where do I have talent? Because there is somewhere. You just got to get out of where you're at to find out. Number two, success is much easier when you're working from a position of having a talent. And you will know this because the activities will come so much more easy to you when you're working from a position of talent. And you'll feel excited to keep going even when it's not working when you're working from a position of talent. But what are your talents? Do you even know what your talents are? What are you talented at? Somebody asked you, what are the things that you really do best? Do you know? If you can't answer that question, then you may be working from a position of no talent. Number three, when you're working on something from the position of no talent, you can do everything right and still fail. Has that been happening to you? You're doing everything right. You are following the exact steps that someone you look up to or someone you heard of or someone who happened to lay out the steps. You are following the exact prescription that they gave, but you are still failing. You are still coming up short. You're still not even getting close. Is that happening to you? Now, I can't answer that question. Nobody else can answer it for you. Only you can answer that question. But are you there? Are you getting close? Are you not close at all? Are you like so far away despite all your best efforts? Maybe you're in a place where you don't have talent. Maybe you're in a place where it's just not the right spot for you. Maybe you're the square peg trying to fit yourself into a round hole. But again, I'm reiterating these same points. The only person who can answer this question is you. The only person who can have this honest conversation with you is you. The only person who can say, you know what, this is the wrong place, or I know this is not the right place. Maybe it's not completely wrong, but I know it's not the right place. Let me go find where that place is. You got to get outside of that box. You got to get outside of that box, whatever your box, quote unquote, is, and go find out where your talent is, because maybe you're in the wrong place. Work on your game. DreAllDay.com.